Hey everybody, Dr. Kevin Hyde here with Pinellasanxietyspecialist. It is day 16 of my 30 days of live videos. You may have noticed that I haven't been around for about a week or so, and my initial intent was to go 30 days straight through the month of November, and we had this family vacation planned for the Thanksgiving week, and I thought that I was going to be able to find time to just carve 5 minutes out of the day to get this video posted each day, but turns out that the day we left, as we were trying to wrangle the kids together, pack up, clean the house to make sure it was ready for the dog sitter and all of that, that it was just adding stress to me to try and find that time to work in these videos. And I thought, this is an opportunity for me to practice what I preach, that I think we all need breaks from work, from the stresses of daily life, and that I was going to use that vacation and just make sure that I was present with family. And so that's what I did. I didn't think about work as much as possible. I just focused on playing with the kids, going to the pool, being with the other adults that were there, and just having a wonderful time in Orlando. But we got back yesterday, and so today I'm right back at it. So today I'm going to talk about panic attacks. And if any of you have ever had a panic attack before, then you know that it is one of the most uncomfortable things that you can ever go through. And I don't think that's an exaggeration, because I've had one myself. And it was before our first daughter was born. We had to go through an education class about the whole birthing process because we wanted to do a natural birth and go to the natural birthing center. And while they were going through that, I mean, I had studied up and thought that I knew what they were going to talk about, and no big deal. And then they started getting into all of the complications that could happen during the delivery process, all the things that could be wrong with the baby, all of the things that could go wrong with my wife. And wow, that was let's just say it was sort of scary. I didn't feel scared, but inside me, my body just started to react. Okay, and so this is a good example of how panic attacks work, is that apparently my mind recognized that that was a danger, that was a threat, and so it started sending hormones going through my system. I started feeling really hot in this room that was, it was in a hospital room, so it was pretty chilly in there probably, but I felt very hot. I started sweating. I got very pale, which means that my blood pressure was dropping. My wife was asking me, "Are you okay?" And I didn't know if I was having a heart attack, if I was going crazy. All of those thoughts were going through my head. I was thinking about, do I need to go to the bathroom to get out of here? And I was like, man, I'm going to pass out if I try and go to the bathroom. And so instead I just sat there. And as I was going through all of that, thankfully I was already in grad school for psychology and was able to recognize that what was going on was a panic attack, that it wasn't something that was actually harmful or dangerous. And so I just sat there and tried to pay attention to the class, and it did pass. It was probably 10 or 15 minutes total that it lasted. And then afterwards I felt a little bit drained, but other than that I was fine. I was able to go through the rest of the class and go about the day and not have any issues. And so that is a pretty typical experience with a panic attack. They last around 15 to 20 minutes max. They come on without warning. It's very unexpected, and that's why they can cause so many problems, because you start to, when you have them more than once, you start to fear being in public about what's going to happen if you go to these places where they've happened before, and so you start to avoid that. You start to avoid going in the car, because what happens if you have a panic attack while you're driving? Maybe you avoid grocery stores or other crowded places, because what happens if you have a panic attack while you're around all those strange people? And so your world starts to really shrink down. It gets smaller and smaller. And so panic disorder can be really disrupting to people's lives. People end up just staying home and not being able to get out and do much of anything because they're always fearing the panic attack. And so the panic attack, all that is really fear. So I like to say that panic disorder is really the fear of fear. And so that's sort of what the panic attacks look like and why they're so problematic, because they start making you avoid all these things that you want to be doing. Maybe it's work or shopping for the family, going to social events, all of that stuff. And so it's really important to try and do something to get through this, to get over it, so you can move on with your life and do better. And the good news is that panic disorder is really responsive to treatment, whether that is doing some of these things on your own that I'll talk about, or working with a therapist who can help you. In the office, we can do some things that will help you to experience some of those panic sensations without being able to avoid it and run away from it and see that you don't actually need to do anything for the panic attacks to pass, and that makes it easier to confront them in your regular life. Okay, so the first thing to know about panic attacks is they are not actually harmful. They're not dangerous. Even though it feels like you're having a heart attack, you're going crazy, that your body is doing all these weird things, there's nothing actually harmful in your body that is happening. Okay, these are all normal processes. It's the result of these anxiety hormones that are sort of flowing through your system that are causing your body to react, but none of that is dangerous to your health. It is not harmful. It's not going to hurt you. So being able to remind yourself of that can help to remove some of that fear that you need to go to the hospital. And that's one of the things that panic attacks can get very expensive because people end up going to the emergency room all the time and not getting anything from it because there's nothing to diagnose. There's no heart issues. There's nothing going on with your brain, nothing going on with your circulatory, nothing like that they can find medically to help. So first, remind yourself that it's not actually dangerous. It's not harmful. And I sort of like to think of panic attacks as you're standing at the edge of the ocean and these waves are coming in, right? Can you do anything to stop that wave from hitting you? No. And if you try and fight with it, all you're going to do is, end up going under, getting knocked over. And so the best way to handle the wave is just to float with it, to let it pass, to not try and stop it. And that is the approach to panic attacks. Reminding yourself that it's not dangerous. You don't actually need to do anything to stop it. It's going to pass on its own within 15 to 20 minutes, just like that wave is going to pass on its own. So first, remind yourself of that. You don't need to do anything. It's not dangerous. One thing that can be helpful is taking a few deep breaths. For some people, that does help kick in that relaxation system in the body. For other people, that actually makes it worse. So you're going to want to try that out and see what works for you. And if it doesn't work, don't worry about that. Just let it go. But if it does work, just taking a couple deep breaths can sort of help make it pass a little bit quicker. But again, reminding yourself you don't need to do anything to make it stop. It will end on its own eventually. The next thing that you can do is to be mindful. Because one of the issues with panic attacks is that you really get caught up in everything that is happening in your body, and you think that something bad is going to happen, which makes your anxiety worse, which makes those things that are happening in your body, the tightness in your chest, the pressure, that feeling like you're going to die. When you're starting to have more anxiety worrying about that, it just makes it get worse, send out more of that hormones, which makes the bodily sensations worse, which makes you worry more. So it's this cycle, and you can see how it kind of balloons up and gets bigger and bigger. So being mindful by just noticing the things around you in the room, really focusing on them. You could pay attention to what's going on in your body if you're doing it, observing and describing in a non-judgmental way, like I talked about in my last video on mindfulness meditation, by not letting those catastrophic thoughts take over of, I'm going to die, I'm going crazy, this is a heart attack, not being caught by those, but just focusing on, okay, I'm feeling some chest tightness, I'm feeling a warmth in my body, I'm feeling a tingling sensation, my arm is numb, just observing and describing in a non-judgmental way. Okay, so not, again, believing those things are really bad and harmful, but just observing and describing and being focused on the present moment. So that's the next thing. And the last part of it is not worrying, again, if they're, when the panic attack ends, it might come back again in a little bit. It's not unusual to sort of go through these cycles of, ups and downs, coming back, but just continuing to use these skills, reminding yourself that this is not something, it's just physically impossible to constantly be in a panic state. So there are going to be those ups and downs, but the more you just kind of accept it and roll with it, like that wave metaphor that I gave you, the less likely you are to have those panic attacks in the future, and they're also less likely to be intense and quite as scary. So that's sort of the ironic thing. Once we don't try and fight with them, once we sort of accept that it's a possibility that it's going to happen, let it pass, then it's less likely to actually come and hit us. It's more of that worry about it and avoiding those situations that makes them happen more frequently and more intensely. Okay, so if you have any questions on that, please shoot me a message. I know that these things can be very scary and really make your life very difficult, but there are things that we can do working together to help make that a little bit easier for you. So please reach out, give me a call, shoot me a message if you want to talk about what treatment for panic attacks would look like. Also, if you have any suggestions for things you want me to cover and I'm going to do 30 days. I'm not going to do just November anymore like my initial plan. I'm going to do the full 30 days of videos. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. Put them in the comments, shoot me a message, and I'll add them to the list of things to cover in the next 15 days or so. Otherwise, hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will talk to you tomorrow.